reaction and review. Tonight, guys, I'm checking out a film from 1986. That movie is Flight of the Navigator. Now, I have seen quite a bit of this movie over my lifetime. In fact, I'm almost certain that I, at one point or another, have seen this entire movie, but I've never actually gotten the opportunity to just sit down and watch it from start to finish. And even then, the last time I saw any footage from this thing, it was about 20 years ago. Because, you see, in the early days of cable, this thing was popping up everywhere, and you would see this movie run quite often on HBO, Cinemax, and the Disney Channel. And on top of that, it would also run on UHF stations as kind of like their Saturday afternoon movie and shit like that for years. So I've seen most of it in little bits and pieces. I don't quite remember the plot too much. It has something to do with a kid who was picked up by a sentient flying saucer, and suddenly there's a fucking time skip, and the kid has been missing for a decade, but he comes back and he hasn't aged because apparently they were going ultra fast in the ship, some such shit. I don't totally remember. It's been that long since I've seen anything from this movie. I do know that the ship was voiced by Paul friggin' Rubens, which is always cool. And even then, I had to look up that when I was considering covering this movie, when I broke down and I bought the Blu-ray. So, I finally get to watch this thing from start to finish, and I do happen to remember, as vague as my memory is from 20 plus years back, I do happen to remember liking what I saw, but now I finally get to see exactly what the context to all of this is. I am, again, hoping for the movie to be good, but the only way I'm going to find out if it is any good is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Flight of the Navigator. Well, guys, it's pretty obvious that, yeah, I never actually got to watch this movie in order. I honestly thought that we got to see the kid in the ship before the time skip, but apparently, no. He just falls down this cliff, and suddenly, boom, we have the time skip. It's certainly a little bit fucking disorienting. It is certainly, interesting and cool, but, it was not really what I was expecting. Still, I am really, really digging it. Wow, guys, this movie was made when New Coke was still a thing. Wow. I actually had completely forgotten about New Coke, and then this movie brings it up, and now I kind of wish that I didn't remember New Coke. Damn. Otherwise, though, guys, the movie so far is really good. I am really fucking digging it. I do have to give the makers of this film credit, guys. I have to give Disney mountains of credit. The inside of this ship is made up almost entirely of mirrored surfaces, but everything is angled in just such a way that you never see the cameraman, you never see the crew. It looks perfect. That must have been one of the most challenging things to do on the inside of that ship, is shoot it in just such a way that nothing is reflected on the walls and shows up on any of the surfaces. That's fucking awesome, dude. Well, guys, I am going to say this. Special effects in this movie are a rather mixed bag. We've had some really good early primitive CG. We've had some awesome composite shots. But the shot of the ship flying over Tokyo officially is some of the worst use of blue screen I've ever seen in a major studio film. That was almost laughably bad, man. Well, guys, that was Flight of the Navigator. Let me shut that off. All right. So, what to say about this movie? I'm going to start with writing, and I'm going to be venturing into a little bit of a spoiler, kind of, but I kind of have to talk about it because this is something which has been a problem in previous films, but it actually kind of worked here. You see, I guys have talked in the past about movies that have a friggin' ending which essentially undoes everything that you have seen, effectively leaving you with no real story to speak of. That was especially problematic in movies such as the Prince of Persia, where literally the entire film is undone in one fell swoop, basically leaving you with a story that, in all honesty, only lasted about 7 minutes. This movie does something very, very similar, and you can kind of see it. You can kind of see it coming about halfway into the movie. You know that's how they're going to go about the ending. The difference here, though, I think, is unlike every other film I have complained about, where essentially everything is undone by the end, whether it be by time travel or it was all just a dream or the character was dead the whole fucking time, whatever method they wish to use. Most of those movies suffered from horrendous writing and a terribly written story. And Flight of the Navigator has an incredibly tight story, and they actually justify the whole, most of this never really happened ending. I honestly don't have a problem with that, you see, because this film does tell you a very interesting story, a very well-written and well-paced story, and the ending which is given is kind of sort of the only natural ending you can give it, unless you wanted to give the film a massive downer ending. Again, I don't want to go into too many spoilers, but, what is here works, in terms of just the ending. I just sort of wanted to touch on that because I know I've bitched about movies that have done stuff like this in the past, but here it actually worked. I am incredibly shocked. Anyway, so as for the rest of our story, our story here, as I've said, is very, very tight. It is a very well-written story. Our pacing here is done incredibly well. Our characters, every single character is ridiculously likable. I mean, even our technical villains, which are the people working at NASA, they aren't really villains and they're not really evil so much as they want to figure out what the hell is going on with David and why he hasn't aged in 8 years and how it ties into this spaceship which they just stumbled on, and they really do come off as basically just trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and that totally works. And we have David going through massive culture fucking shock because of the 8-year time fucking jump in his friggin' life, and he has to deal with the fact that his favorite shows on TV have been friggin' canceled. He has no idea about anything in terms of music or, culture, any of that. Apparently when... Okay, I am not a big expert on Coke, but apparently back in 1978 you just had Coke and nothing else. When he asks for a Coke, he is then given the laundry list of at the time available Cokes, which included regular Coke, new Coke, Diet Coke, Cherry Coke, and caffeine-free Coke. So, that right there would probably be a lot to have to process if you're only 12 and you've apparently been missing for eight fucking years. And they play all of it incredibly well. And it really is doing the culture fucking shock, time fucking skip thing incredibly well. Our characters here are written beautifully. Our ship, Max, is just incredibly lovable, especially after he scans all the star maps that are inside of David's head and then winds up picking up more human, characteristics, and then that gives Paul fucking Rubens a chance to just go completely bonkers with the character. I think, though, that the reason why Max is such a likable character, and I'm just going to segue right into acting, is because we had Paul fucking Rubens, who went under a fucking alias here because apparently the idea of Pee Wee fucking Herman voicing a ship was just a little bit too frickin' much. But Rubens made it work. He honestly was just able to flex every single acting muscle he had, simply voicing this ship, and the rest of our cast also does a spectacular job. I'm going to give a special mention to Sarah Jessica Parker. I've never been a fan of Sarah Jessica Parker. Normally her movies suck because she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing on camera. Yet back in 1986, she could actually act. She actually put in some level of effort. My God, I was surprised, which makes me wonder what the fuck happened to her in the past, like, 30 years that suddenly she can't act anymore and she's just trying to bank on what few frickin' looks she still has left. But anyway, even she turned in a friggin' awesome job, and our head NASA scientist Faraday is played by Howard, who is played by Howard fucking Hessman, and Howard Hessman turns in an amazing job. Guys, our whole cast here was spectacular. They were all fucking dynamite, and they just friggin' go out there and they just keep knocking it out of the park with every single scene. Our acting here was amazing, and that honestly, and I think that more than anything else really helped punctuate a very well written script, because when you have a great script and you have great acting, it all just kind of merges and it makes a good movie even better. Special effects. Here is the one spot where I'm gonna find a handful of negatives, and mind you, they aren't even big. They're just noticeable flaws. One of them, I can tell you right now, is because I watched this thing on Blu-ray, so it picked up even more of the details. Because on the ship, Max has this small area which is full of all these other little, creatures he's picked up on all of these planets. He's going to drop them all back off on their planet at their time, once he's done doing all of his research, this, and this, blah, blah, blah. Most of those look awesome, but then there's this little tiny one that David kind of sort of becomes friends with, because it's the only one that apparently isn't vicious in any fucking way. And the puppet's literally only about this big, and it really is sort of a cute looking puppet. The problem is that the puppet's arms are moved with fishing line. And again, if you were watching this on film, you were watching it on, VHS, Betamax, probably even on DVD, you might not have noticed the fishing line that was moving the alien's arms. The problem is, because Blu-ray is so crisp, you can see the fishing line in a couple of shots. It's literally in like 2, possibly 3 shots. So it's not even really worth mentioning, except just to mention that it is something that is noticeable. And if you're one of those people who gets really like pulled out of a movie from seeing that, then just heads up, you're going to see some line in a couple of spots. The only other spot I can say is really a negative is with one bit of chroma key that was used in the film, because this thing uses a lot of fucking chroma key, compositing, and all of that, and usually it all looks really good until the ship meanders into Tokyo. Allow me to set the scene for you as it was shown on the Blu-ray here. So we have a bunch of actors up front, and behind them is a very dark blue screen. The dark blue screen, I should mention, was never friggin' covered or made to look like anything. You can see the blue screen in the background. Now, in the foreground of what was chroma keyed in is a very poorly cut out shot of the Tokyo skyline from street frickin' level and kind of sort of looking up. It looks very odd, especially when we have our actors here and all of them are standing straight up. The buildings all look as if they're sloping, and they're all a very odd shade of frickin' gray, because they needed to find a way to cut them out and actually composite them onto the shot. And then we have Max. We then have the ship like fly in and fly out. So the only thing which they really did was, instead of putting like a sky in the background, maybe with some stars or some clouds or something, they left the blue screen up. And then they just went and they fucking threw in a couple of really poorly composited buildings and the ship. And the ship looks fine. The buildings look awful. And the whole shot looks absolutely terrible. And once more, that's maybe like 30 seconds of the whole fucking film. I have spent probably about a minute complaining about a 30-second shot that means literally nothing to this movie. However, once more, it was noticeable enough for me to mention it, and that's why I brought it up. Beyond those 2 negatives, beyond the fishing line and that one horrendous shot of blue screen shit, everything else here is awesome. We have everything here, guys, we have everything from CG whenever the ship's stairs, like, form, to puppet work, to there, I believe, was even a little bit of stop fucking motion in there, and it looked really, really good. Everything here in terms of special effects, minus the two flaws I mentioned, are amazing. And especially, guys, especially by the standards of 1986, what you see here is absolutely breathtaking and amazing. Now, camera work. I mentioned this earlier, but goddammit, I'm going to mention it again. I was impressed with how they handled all of the shots inside of the ship. You see, because you guys have to actually see this movie in order to fully understand what the inside of this ship looks like. Every single surface is mirrored or chrome or metal. It's all ridiculously reflective shit. And you can watch the whole movie, and I swear I never once saw a cameraman. I never once saw any crew behind the fucking camera. You really only see Max, like the little fucking head of Max, David, the puppets, or the fucking back of the ship. That is all that you see, and that probably took a lot of effort to make it look that flawless. Now, mind you, that also, though, is because you don't have just a sleek, flat surface. There are tons of little freaking, like, ridges, and, like, everything else is all sort of, like, squared off or piped around, and even though it's all metal, it's all mirrored, the very fact that there's all those little things, that is probably why you can't see a cameraman and you can't see a crew. But it still makes everything look awesome, and it is a beautiful touch that you can't see the cameraman. I have seen so many movies where they don't even notice a mirror in a shot, and what do you know, the cameraman is there clear as fucking day. But Disney went the extra mile, made an entire set of mirrored surfaces, and you never see anything that you aren't supposed to see. That is fucking awesome. And beyond that, everything else here in terms of camera work is really nothing nothing ultra special. Like, it seriously works, but it's nothing but it is nothing that is outside of the realm of, normalcy for a movie. So I can say camera work here is really good, especially when it's inside of Max, and it just looks amazing. Our sound mix here is really good. Our score is awesome. Our score, I should mention, if the opening credits, I believe I saw that. Let me check this. I want to make sure it's on the back, too. It was from Alan fucking Silvestri, if memory serves. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like any other Silvestri score I have ever heard. And I say that because even though he does some really awesome scores, a lot of them sound kind of sort of samey. This sounds nothing like any other Silvestri score I have ever heard. So mad fucking props there. And our soundtrack, every single song that is featured is amazing. And we are talking everything from the 80s fucking pop, which they used to kind of set up that David is now in 1986, to when David and Max are jamming out to the Beach Boys as they're flying around the world. All of it fucking works, and it all works incredibly well. The one thing that I kind of don't like is the fact that there's like 2-3 mentions of fucking Twisted Sister, but you never hear any Twisted Sister in the movie. I was a little bit fucking let down there, but oh well. That honestly is just me bitching about nothing, so oh well, moving on. Honestly, guy, oh yeah, and the sound mix here is amazing in terms of just making sure everything's balanced right. We don't have the problem of the music being too loud or too, muted. ADR, whatever fucking ADR was done here was done perfectly. The sound mix here was flawless. Guys, when all is said and done, can I recommend Flight of the Navigator? Fuck yes, I can. And you can either buy it on DVD right now. I believe I just saw it on Amazon on DVD for like $5, or and you're gonna have to do this at least as of this recording. If you want to get it on Blu-ray, you're gonna have to import it. Good news is you can probably get the imported disc here, and mind you, this thing here is a region-free disc. It'll play anywhere. You can get it for about for about 16, maybe 17 bucks. So by all means, run out and fucking get it. This movie is absolutely worth every cent. I'm so happy I threw down the money on this. I'm so happy I finally had the opportunity to sit down and watch it. Guys, this is probably one of the best sci-fi films Disney has ever made. I say, and mind you, I say one of because it's a very close second behind fucking Tron. And I loved Tron, and this sucker I love almost as much. Yes, I can absolutely recommend it. This thing here is an awesome sci-fi film. It's a fantastic family film. If you have not seen it yet, you absolutely have to. This movie is fucking badass. And you know what? I just mentioned Tron. I see my Tron Blu-ray down there. I think I'm going to go and watch me a little bit of Tron and just sort of keep this whole Disney fucking sci-fi thing rolling. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this installment of Reaction and Review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.